Trevor. Hey, man, Friday. How you doing?
I'm very good. How are you, Cory?
I'm doing fantastic. Welcome to the InnSync show. Awesome to have you on.
It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Fantastic. Hey, we're going to talk, got a title, Let's Regroup, how to maximize your sales pipeline. Can you give us a intro? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Trevor MacLean. I'm the Strategic Partnerships Manager over at Event Temple. Before that, I was our sales manager as well, and I've been with Event Temple for 4 years now. Who Event Temple is, what is Event Temple? We are a modern sales and catering solutions that aims to optimize and grow sales and events business for hotels and venues.
Super. Much like so many great conversations, met you on LinkedIn. Bob, I've been connected to Bob, your boss, for quite some time. Had some great conversations, and wanted to get you on. I had a question for you. The first one is, how can sales teams best reclaim their share of group business right now?
Excellent question, and one that I would say is true to me, is both what we do and from what I've seen. So I think the number one thing I like to always tell anyone is to review their funnel. So you want to really understand, do you have leaks? And if so, where? So I think what you always have to start and do is go through your entire sales processes. You got to go through the playbooks. You got to try and view them from the outside, not from your perspective, but from how they are doing. You got to ask yourself, are leads being logged from first point of interaction, like when they first put their hand up, or are they being logged just when people are locked in for business? And then even from there, it's you got to ask yourself questions like, what are your prospecting practices? How do you go about them? Who do you go after? Why do you go after them? What do you talk about when you're going after them? I think from there, it's you got to be tracking why you win, why you lose from that first touch, because that's when you're going to optimize things.
Fantastic. My post, ironically, today on LinkedIn was speed matters in winning the deal, right? The numbers don't lie. In fact, I had my Ricky Bobby post about if you're not first, you're last. So absolutely.
And yeah, I think anyone should be logging, they should have standards around response time. Someone comes in, how fast do you get back? And that should be tracked and logged and known. And you should be always trying to beat it, right? The little bit quicker that you can be, it's great.
Fantastic. What about number of touches? I saw a staggering statistic on Forrester or Gartner. Minimum 8 touches now, right? Follow-ups, consistency in trying to manage that, getting back to your leaky pipeline. Talking about, say you have a handful of deals going on, and trying to manage and follow up in a cadence where 1 or 2 is not going to do it, right? It's going to be 5, 6, maybe 8 touches.
I think 8 as a minimum is smart, but also understanding how you do it, right? It's no message should be the same.
Yep.
You shouldn't use just one channel. That's another one, right? Just because they came in maybe by an email doesn't mean you just email them 10 times.
Right.
You should try and find them on LinkedIn. Give them a phone call if you've got a number. Try and understand that whole thing in a holistic approach. Because if you just spam a bunch of emails, who knows? Maybe it's going to junk, and then you've lost it just from there. And that's not really your fault, but it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I'm a tangible guy. Sometimes digital, when people are zigging, you want to zag, right? What about skywriting in an airplane, maybe to get their attention on that?
Hey, if you got the budget for it, you should absolutely do it.
Right. Oh, that's great. Love learning from people that are doing things right. I wish I would have taken that message earlier in life. As a creative person, sometimes you don't want to follow someone else. You want to do your own thing, and that oftentimes doesn't work out really well. Now, at least I've wised up a little bit more. I'm finding in paying attention to people that are doing exactly what I do. They're successful at it and following what they're doing. So what are successful salespeople doing right now?
I think the best salespeople from what I see They do three things. And those three things that I see is, one, they make very data-based decisions. They don't follow like gut interactions, like I thinks. There's a lot of I knows because this is what it says, right? So they have the numbers and they back it up. Now, in terms of like a personality, when they talk to customers, they're consultative. So they don't sell space and rates. They sell experiences. They point out when business isn't good to emphasize fit. This is who we don't sell to because we sell to you. So it's helpful. And then, I mean, the last one is like they prospect consistently and they always maintain and grow relationships. So not order taking, but like maintaining and growing relationships with people. I think there's a statistic out there that says 85% of business is done with people that people like. So it's like 15% is won on technical ability alone, which is like a staggeringly low amount for probably how much of us we think that we win on technical ability. You almost guaranteed don't.
Good, really, really good point. I wanted to add a little bit to that. I follow a methodology, gap selling, which is an amazing book. Learning to ask questions first, because as you mentioned, you're not selling features and chairs and space. You're selling an experience and a solution. And how do you know where to take that conversation unless you're asking questions first? You're really vetting out exactly what the needs are. And as salespeople, sometimes we have a tendency to just dominate the conversation, right? And going off in a direction called feature dumping, going off in a direction that may or may not even be relevant to the conversation. So that act of listening and asking questions, I've learned that that's been very, very valuable.
It's huge. And I'll do like a kind of promo for my favorite book when it comes to these things, which is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And like one of the big things they teach is they call it find your black swan. And so your black swan is what is guiding them? What is the entire reason why they're there? What are they there for? And they'll have a million things that they present to you, but there is only one real reason why they're doing something. And maybe they don't even know it, but the only way that you can find that together is by being like consultative, asking questions, putting someone in a relationship of trust, right? And that's the only way that you're going to really figure out what someone's actually looking for.
That's a really good point. And speaking of trust, I even read a statistic. In fact, in gap selling, they say you don't necessarily have to be liked. You have to be trusted, right?
Exactly.
If they trust you and they know that you can help them, they want to do business with you, regardless if they'll hold their nose and work with you if they don't. And so I myself have put myself in that situation. So I'm like, I've nodded my head. It's like, yeah, this person definitely knew his stuff. Didn't particularly like the personality, didn't mesh very well, but I decided to go with that person and it was successful. So I totally get it. Definitely.
It's respect, right? At the end of the day, you want to work with someone you respect, right?
Absolutely.
And that's who you kind of make relationships with at the end of the day.
For sure. Which is one of the reasons why we've been advising our salespeople really to focus on building social proof, building testimonials. And I know we've talked about this before. There really isn't a place to go to say, hey, look, we've got on our website or other places where we've had an amazing video testimonial of a group we've had on property. They had an amazing experience. I think really properties should really, because that builds trust, right? With somebody you don't know, you can't, if you don't have a relationship with that person, just like we're obsessed with TripAdvisor, we should be equally obsessed about building social proof on the group side.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you don't, it becomes a commodity, and it will be. Nobody wants this to be a commodity, but if there's no trust and it turns into it, it's going to become that way. And like, I think that's kind of what we saw with things like OTAs, is that it just became easier to book online than to try and talk to someone. Because you're like, I don't trust them anyway, so I might as well book it online.
Totally.
Right? And that's where the downfall came.
So should salespeople really hone in on being that trusted advisor, right? Being part of the equation, part of the value, because as you just mentioned, there are platforms like Group 360, there are sometimes the ability to sidestep the sales process altogether and book yourself a small meeting. But if you make yourself that a trusted advisor, a value of the process, they'll want to reach out to you and say, Sally Sue, I'd really love your insights on a particular event we've got coming up. Could you help us out? Would you agree with that?
I do. I really do. And I think like it's very important that if at the end of the day, if you end up being an order taker, I mean, a machine is always going to be a better order taker than a human being will be. As much as we'd like to pretend that it's not, I mean, that's kind of what machines are the best built for. A computer is best built to do what you told it to do. Exactly, right?
That Chat GPT is that. In fact, that's one of the things that we're talking about is the discussion of how is that going to make jobs obsolete? And they said, if you're order takers or if you can read off script, you might be in that situation. So absolutely.
Totally.
Completely agree. What's the biggest misconception about group sales heading into 2023?
I think actually it's funny, we just touched on it, and I was gonna say it's order taking is not selling, right? It's exactly that. And it's like it's understanding where they're coming from, what they're telling you, why should they work with you, being that trusted advisor. It's like if you're hoping, I think what it's funny because we saw it with COVID where the orders dried up and people didn't know what to do. And I think now we're coming back to this, like you're seeing it, right? Like Nolan shared it, November and December beat 2019 meetings and groups, right? So they're back. And I think people are suddenly like, cool, we can go back to what we wanted. But I think that's a huge misconception because I think we might be in for, there's like a strong possibility we're in for a bumpy year based on all the headwinds that you hear in economics. There is that possibility some of this like good times maybe dries up a bit as the year goes on. I'm not saying it will for sure. I think there's going to be ups and downs as the year goes, but if you're ahead of it and you're excited to be ahead of it, I think that you're going to do really well.
I think the relation, and I could not agree with you more. I think all the indicators, in fact, the what's called the inverted yield curve and all that, way too much financials for me to comprehend. But the people that I follow has said when the financial indicators have been like this, it's never gone without a recession. And they're flashing red right now. So the relationship, if you've got a strong network, strong relationships, trusted advisor, that's going to get you through what could be some difficult times. So I could not agree with you more. The order taking.
There's always someone doing business. Like no matter what's going on, there's someone doing business. And if you are one of those people who's going out, you're chatting with new people every day, you're maintaining strong relationships, you're gonna find those people. What is it that hard workers are naturally lucky? That's if you're a strong prospector, you're naturally a good salesperson because suddenly people are everywhere. You have great relationships, you meet them all the time. It's like you're always doing business with people who are doing business because you're out there, they're out there, you find each other.
Oh man, that's some really good insights there for sure. Some of the conversations we had, you and I have both agreed, we're not insiders. We're not hoteliers. So we're looking at things differently from a different lens, and there's been, admittedly, when you don't have the experience of working on property, there's definitely some learning and challenges that go along with that. But I think it's also an asset that we look at some of the things that are coming up from a different perspective. So, you and I talked about the need for change. We see it in other industries. Some really thoughtful people in LinkedIn have started some great conversations. We've got Chat GPT. We've talked about that before. But what exciting changes do you see coming down the pike for group sales?
I think what we are about to see is a big way that it's like changing. And maybe this isn't as much like groups. Well, actually, I think it is groups too. Which is, I think we're going to start seeing these small groups are going to stop going through sales teams as much. And there's going to be that rise of book online, much like there is for your standard guest room. But I don't think that that's like this apocalypse for hotel sales teams.
No.
I actually think it's like, probably, if anything, it's your biggest reliever. The most painful thing I often hear from your standard hotel sales director is, I hate selling that tiny meeting room, but I have to do it. And there's demand for it. So it really turns into this, like, what if someone could book that small event and you just got to set it up? And I think that's what we're going to start seeing a lot more of.
And so they can concentrate on focusing on larger deals that require, hey, I need a theme, or hey, can you help me out with this complicated AV system? Or because one of the things that you and I talked about too is we're seeing, especially in our clients, I see a lot of the inbound inquiries, a lot of people asking about help and information on hosting events that aren't meeting planners. They're administrative assistants, or they're been asked to do an event and they need help. So, maybe like you said, maybe it's to now people that are skilled, they understand they can do it online, but there's still that need and hand holding for somebody that's got a complex deal.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like the complex ones, you need salespeople in events and meetings and large group sales. Like, I mean, if you're telling me you don't need one, that's crazy. Of course you do. It's a complicated thing, and it's an offering that you only can be the expert on at the hotel. But if someone's trying to book a small little meeting for like a lunch at your hotel on a day when the room's open and they can't get through to someone, wouldn't it kind of be better if they could just book it right there? You get the revenue, you grab your share of it, and then they're there. And they wanted to be there.
Absolutely. And because I'm going to take a little bit of extend of that. Imagine, because I regularly snoop on other hotel websites because we're trying to improve the user experience. And if you go to most hotel websites, it'll go to the meetings page, right? You can't even ask a simple question. It goes from here's an RFP form, fill out these 100 forms. So it goes from 0 to a lengthy essay. They want your social security number, everything else that goes on. What if it was just, hey, look, do you have XYZ room or availability, just to ask a simple question? So even just asking a simple question is difficult, right?
It is. And that's where that sort of thing can just help you, right? And it's like, here's what I can say. You ain't booking your wedding that way. You're not booking a large conference that way. You're not booking like probably over 20 people that way. That's kind of chaotic if you're going to go that route as like someone who's like booking. But that's like, and that's where you want your salespeople focusing, right? Is these people who are doing complex things that cost a lot of money, and the customer wants to feel like it matters that they're spending that money, and you want to really take care of them. And then how can you free up people's time to do it? Just open up that, like, have them spend a little less time on the lunch meetings, have them spend a little less time on those quick in and outs, right?
Absolutely. So that in itself is a great way to optimize your pipeline. Be able to spend, because I'm assuming if you're getting inundated with inquiries, it's kind of hard to really figure out. I mean, I'm sure the seasoned pros can, but some lucrative deals that have many more variations or variables to it require so much more time, I would think. And, you would want to spend much more attention on that side.
I think that also leads to even a point that I think is like really near and dear to me, is like, know who you do really well with.
Very good.
Are you a space that hosts great weddings? If so, do you want to do corporate retreats? If you do, how can you leverage what you're good at to add it to that? Or like, how can you if you want to double down on what you're really good at and you stop trying to take on this other business? Because there's something special about being a specialist. People respect it and they double down on it. Absolutely.
And even having the confidence and to pass on a piece of business that might not fit, right? And have that we do it with now here at agencies is, we're been specializing specifically on the B2B side, right? So I'll have people that need help on other elements of the business. I've got other agencies and other strategic partners. It works out so much better because I can spend time on things I know we do well. And I look like a hero because I pass it off to somebody else that I know is going to take care of them. So it's a win-win all the way around. I'd imagine same thing with hotels and space.
It works the same for us. If you have a problem that we know we do not solve, we're going to be the first ones to tell you it. We go, hey, look, I understand what you're doing. You need to go to this, and we can't help you. And I can take you down this road. If you want to still see it, you can, but I'm going to tell you all the reasons why this doesn't really work. And either you'll agree with me or you won't at the end, but that's all I can do.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, I think that's the way to go these days. You can't, like you said, people are looking for experts. They're not looking for a jack of all trades, master of none. They're looking for someone that really is a professional in a particular little. You want to be. I heard
what you know.
Right. I heard this from a great, and I'm not exactly sure where this quote came from. You want to be 1 inch thick or 1 inch wide and 1,000 feet deep.
I love that. I'm going to steal that. I'm definitely going to be taking that.
That's always resonated with me. And I haven't always taken that advice early on, but I think that's the way to go these days. It's just, you've got to be an expert in that field. And it's hard when there's so much to learn, especially in marketing. Oh my Lord. Woo. Just
totally.
It's always a shiny object, right? It's crazy. So, hey, this has been a fantastic conversation. I can sit here and talk to you for hours. Let's have a follow up and talk more about sales strategies sometime a little bit further down the road.
I would love that.